and welcome to AJ Paints. I'm Andy. In this video I'll be showing you how to paint a Troglodyte, one of the wandering beasts from Maladum, the board game from Battle Systems. The Troglodyte, affectionately known as the Lurker, hangs around in dungeons stealing things that your adventurers really want. That's why he's got all those arms and he's carrying all that stuff. I'll show you how to get this miniature quickly ready for your tabletop and how you can push the quality for an even better finish. We'll go for a really nice underpainting job on this miniature and start off, as I often do, with dark sea blue from Vallejo. I'm going to dry brush this on. It's a heavy dry brush, and just starting off with my usual cheap makeup brush, slightly loading it up, getting rid of some of the excess, and then getting ready to brush that heavily over the miniature. I'm going to start working on a lighter shade of blue here using Thunderhawk blue from Citadel. I'm going to brush that over, and this time I'm focusing on the top of the miniature and a little bit on the left hand side, trying to pick out some detail and start to set where I want the light to be falling on this character. So with those nice blue base tones set, I want to build up the idea of that shadow that's lit with a pale blue light by using this pale blue from Vallejo. It's an air colour, so it's a lot thinner, this one, so it's a little bit trickier to dry brush, but it's okay if you follow that process of dabbing off the most of the excess paint on a bit of paper towel before you get started. You can see here, focusing on the top, on the left hand side of the mini as you look at it. But it's not quite bright enough yet, so mix a bit of pale sand in with that colour and you can get a really bright highlight. And you can see here, focusing on the top, on one side of the face, the knee that's sticking out, and the arms on that left hand side of the mini. You could leave it there if you want a very quick addition to your tabletop, but let's have a look at how we can get a little bit more colour on. With the shadows, the highlights and the other tones set, it's time to start adding the colour. And a good quick way of doing that is with speed paints, in this case Citadel Contrast Colour. This is Plague Bearer Flesh. It's a lightish green colour, but I've lightened it even more by mixing in some water, 1:1 ratio. With that skin tone set, it's time to look at some of the wooden areas, and Wildwood's a good choice for that. I'm doing the club here, just working in and around the details. I want to make sure that I don't go over the metal section or these ropes that are binding that together. And then I'll have a look at how I can fill in some of the other areas, including the chest that he's carrying. Again, only painting in the bits of the wood, leaving the other things so I can pick up those bits with another colour. Next up, Skeleton Horde, and I'm using this for the paper areas. So that's the scrolls, got a couple of scrolls on him, and the pages on the book. Snakebite leather is a similar colour to Skeleton Horde, a little bit darker, a little bit yellower. So I'm using that for the ropes. I'm also going to use it for the metal binding on the chest, and I'll add a little bit of dark shadow areas to the scrolls, which are looking a little bit pale at the moment. There's a lot of detail on the top of this miniature, but you can pick out these lumps, which I'm going to treat as bone. I think they look like that from the original artwork. So the snakebite leather gives a good base for them. And I'll also pick out these rough areas on the skin. With that all done, I took another look at the top of the miniature, and there's still quite a lot of detail up there. It looks sort of like bristles or little roots or something on the artwork. I just added a bit of Skeleton Horde as a lighter version of that snakebite leather, just to pick out some of the detail on the top there. you've got a few options for metals. I like a bluey black colour for my metal, so mixing these two together usually works for me. If you've got metallic speed paints, they'll do probably just as good a job. I prefer that sort of non-metallic finish. The blue was very strong though, so just using a wet brush I wicked away a lot of the excess on there so that it didn't give me quite such a strong finish. Finally, the cloth on the top of the miniature. A purple ink or a purple speed paint would be good. I don't have one, so I've just mixed the colour that I wanted from these red and blues. You can tell that purple's going on quite thin. It's because I've watered it down. I do prefer to have my contrast paints watered down a bit, so I've got some more control and I don't get that cartoonish feel. This bit though, you can see I've used the blue, absolutely neat. It's gone on very, very strong and it's okay, but I'll tone that colour down later. That's all the basic colours done, so basing it is the next stage if you want to just get this onto your tabletop. As always, P3 Iron Hole Grey is my colour of choice. I get it on quite wet, put a couple of layers on, and the whole thing's finished pretty quickly. As a final touch on here, I thought I would have a go at the eyes. I've switched to a nicer brush here, just one with a real fine point on it. I'm using a very pale colour. I think this is a pale skin colour. They're quite tricky to paint, these eyes, because they're hidden in those little recesses, but just a quick blob of white, they're done. And that is the tabletop version finished. It's looking pretty good. Some matte varnish on that will really sort it out. You can see the shine coming off the saucepan there, but it's a pretty good finish for tabletop. Let's see what we can do by adding some highlights, see if we can push the quality a bit. So a lot of the advanced shading techniques are basically the same. It's get the colour, mix some pale sand into it and gradually build up to a highlight. Really, you've just got to figure out where you want to place those highlights. Now that dry brushing work that we did earlier really helps us out because the underpainting has already shown us where the lightest areas of the miniature are. You can see here I'm tapping rather than doing a lot of actual brush painting on. The colour here is the Plague Bearer flesh mixed in with some light grey and a tiny bit of pale sand. I put the light grey in because I wanted to desaturate that, not go for such a vibrant green colour, get a bit closer to a sort of skin colour. The original artwork for this character shows it as a grey colour, but I decided I didn't really like that. It would look too much like the rock troll and maybe not have quite the impact that I wanted on the table. So I've gone for this instead. You can tell from the colour of the brush tip that I'm getting closer to pale sand as my final colour, and also you can see that I'm painting much smaller areas just to get these final bits. Now this is pure pale sand, painting over the bone bits. The snakebite leather from earlier has given us a good base coat and I can just paint the tops of these sections and it's looking nice. After that quick check over, I realised I wanted to get some even brighter highlights. So this is pure pale sand, just small dots. It helps to add a bit of texture to that already rough looking skin. And I'm painting very small areas here. So the beginnings of my work on the metal, if you've just used some metallic paint, there's no real need to do this, but I quite like to do these sort of little highlights, bright highlights. At this point I'm just placing them with the pale sand. They're a little bit too bright, but it'll work. For the scrolls here, this is a mixture of pale sand and a brown colour, Rhinox hide I think, a darker brown, just so I can get to that sort of medium scroll colour, and then working up to pale sand again, just on the tips, and then painting around the scroll edge here. I thought I'd be clever and paint some book texture pages in page edges in here, but they sort of blurred together a bit. Still looks good though, especially as the original colour that I've got on there is really dark. So I think you need these page edges to really sell it as a book. Placing the highlight on the gold or brass banding around the chests is pretty easy. Just pick a point, work your way down. I pretty much do the same on the back as well. A couple of little bright dots there. Eventually I'll blend these in a little bit nicely, but for now they're good enough. And this is the Rhinox hide. In fact, this is the Wildwood contrast paint colour, just mixed with some flesh tone, a dark flesh tone, to start to build up some of the areas of brighter detail on the wood. I'm just picking out the grain pattern that's already on there, and then for this end bit, mixing in a bit of, you guessed it, pale sand, to pick out that brighter end bit where the bark is not sticking out on the end. Ducat blue, I do not know, but it's a great colour, and mixed with that pastel you get some fantastic finishes. You can see how bright it is here though against that super dark contrast paint. What I was trying to do here was get some worn leather edges. I tried to do some writing on the spine, didn't look great. Tried to paint an M on the front for Maladum. Yeah, it sort of went okay. A couple of scratches, and then that lighter blue colour just to build up the detail and the interest there, and it's looking all right, but it was a bit too bright, so I've gone back in with some dark sea blue, just sort of glazed over the top to mix in from that dark colour really, so it doesn't look so bad. There's a lot of back and forth on this bit of the pan. I just wanted to try a nice metallic highlight, so I started off with that ducat blue. It's a bit too blue, so I got some dark sea blue on to dark it down a bit, and then that wasn't a great colour, so I got some darker blue and mixed that in. Basically a lot of back and forth until I'm happy with that single bright highlight down the middle, and it looks fine. It's good enough for me. And we're nearly at the end now. I did actually use some purple paint for this one, mixed in with, of course, pale sand. Gradually mixing a little bit more pale sand in each time, focusing the highlights towards the top. Here, this is where I'm putting the brightest ones in, just so I can sell that lighting effect. And that's it done. You can see another thing that I added was some red patches on the knees, the feet, around the face, under the chin, and right on his bum there. It's really super thin red paint with some flesh colour mixed in. I think it makes him look a little bit realer. Anyway, that's him done. If you have got this far, as always, I thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.